I spoke with Professor Robert Toombs recently about the notion of decline, national decline. And he actually made a counter argument to the ones you'd see from the likes of Konstantin Kisin on trigonometry, who says, well, we can't state that Britain is in decline. Look at every metric. And actually, when you do look at basically everything from the Second World War, it has effectively been that trend line. Things are not looking good. And even in this century alone, the metrics suggest that people aren't earning any more money. Houses are a lot more expensive. Taxes are higher. National debt's really high. We spend most of our tax now on the NHS and servicing debt payments. And we don't seem to create that many new jobs. All of those things. Robert Toombs made the point that, well, yeah, but if you still compare us to any other point in history, I mean, we're still within the top 6 richest countries in the world. If you compare us to most countries in the world, we still have a very good standard of living. However, it's also true to say that Britain was once the richest, the healthiest, and the best educated of countries. People can say that was because of the empire, whatever. Why do you think Britain has stagnated so much compared to a great many other countries who haven't experienced the same amount of wage stagnation and the various other issues that we've talked about today?
Sure. So, I mean, look, people's experience of the world is relative. So, I mean, yes, in absolute terms, we'll be richer than we were in 1890, like many, many, many times over. But there is a relative experience point. There are a couple of different ways in which we could say that Britain's declined. So there's been a relative power decline since about the 1920s. It's really crystallized by the Second World War. That's in relation to America, but also in relation to other ascendant powers. And the reason that matters is that it gives us less control over the world around us. So if you're a smaller military or a smaller economy, etc., you have less relative control over what happens in the world around you, which can make you feel that you're not a country that can kind of sway things in its favour. There was a level of inevitability to that. I don't think it was inevitable, but there was a level of inevitability. Britain wouldn't be the undisputed number one forever. And then we made a number of bad choices over the 1920s that really made sure that was going to happen. You know, chief among them, the Washington Naval Treaty. But that isn't really what people talk about when they talk about decline. There is an economic stagnation, but that really sets in 2008. That's a 2008 problem, and that's a 2008 problem in every Western European country. In fact, we've come out of it probably a little stronger in terms of relative decline than a country like Germany, which is starting to see a precipitous fall in its industrial base. So in economic terms, that stagnation is really a 2008 problem. I mean, unless we forget, in 2007, we had the same per capita GDP as the Americans. And British companies like Vodafone had a bigger market cap than a company like Nvidia. Right? Go away and compare those stock prices now. We were still a serious economic player, and in many ways we still are. Right? The city of London and London as a whole is still a huge financial centre. It's still the capital of global forex trading. It's still a massive market for all sorts of financial services. We're the only European country with a real tech sector. We're third or fourth for capital investment coming from outside the country. We have some very good fundamentals, as well as institutions like Oxford and Cambridge, which aren't going anywhere anytime soon. But what we've done is we've put in place the worst possible policies on top of those good fundamentals, and that has been a choice. At every stage, has been a choice. So our failure to tackle crime has been a choice. Our decisions on mass migration have been a choice. And I think the worst decision of all has been the project of political reordering since 1997, since the Blair years, wherein we've taken power away from ministers who were very, very powerful during the Thatcher and Major years. They had a lot of discretionary power. We've taken power away from them and we've given it to bureaucrats, to quangos. We've gone from about 25 major economic regulators to about 95 over that period. We've got about 500 arm's length bodies, 480 or so, which have power over regulation in different areas of the economy. That makes it very difficult, alongside things like the expansion of human rights law, makes it very difficult for elected politicians to actually do things. So we've as of other countries in Europe, we've gone up, we can't trust the politicians. They got it wrong on 2008. They got it wrong in the 90s, etc. Thatcher was far too harsh. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the experts can decide. The auto experts, regulators, courts, quangos, etc. It's gone terribly. It's been an awful decision. And you combine that with our dreadful planning system, which is kind of trying to freeze the country in amber as it was in 1947 when we passed the Town and Country Planning Act. And it's no wonder that nothing happens, right? We've made it hard to build stuff. We're less relatively powerful on the global stage than we were. That was maybe going to happen anyway, but we certainly didn't have to compound it with terrible domestic decisions like we've done time and time again, pretty much every year since 1997.
I wonder how deeply this is a policy problem or whether this is a political class problem. And that sounds like a bit of a banal comment to make, but I was reading a Substack post of Dominic Cummings, which he wrote last December, and it was where he explained how he had spent the last 20 years reading about Bismarck in Germany, the great German statesman that unified the country. This man with the gentle voice but was unbelievably ruthless and was able to bend the world political the political world to his will and create things which no other politician would have done. And Cummings suggested, well, this is a man who understands human nature and he knew history. And Cummings was explaining how his experience in whether it's Westminster and just politics more broadly, whether it's local or national, is that we're governed by people who are utterly incurious about history. They don't seek to learn the general principles of it. They don't even try to understand how the media works or indeed how politics works. And so you find that we are governed by this herd-like mentality. And it makes me wonder whether the system in which we have now just lends itself to that. I mean, most people who go through the university system end up coming out with a global good view of the world. So every policy has to be about making the world better. And if that means that, we live a little bit less comfortably, then that's fine. It's a good thing. It's our duty. But there doesn't really seem to be any forward thinking. It's all reactive to world events and being truly shocked by an invasion over here or whatever over there. And it makes me wonder whether we are, I know people use the NPC, the non-player character meme to talk about how this is just how everyday people, they get their political leanings from whatever permission is given by the people on screen or in print. But it almost feels like that's our political class too, that we're governed by NPCs. I don't know how we get out of that.
Oh, well, the general public is far more conscious thinkers than most people in politics. Right? No question about it, because they don't have any of the pretense that comes up around working in politics. There is truth to this. It's a personnel problem. But it's worth remembering it hasn't always been a personnel problem. There has to have been a point where we went from getting the wrong personnel to getting the right personnel to getting the wrong personnel. And to me, again, that goes back to policy.